good, Don.
All set? All right, I want to welcome everybody to the Water Bureau special meeting for Wednesday, September 27th. I'm going to call the meeting to order. John's done the attendance, and we're just one short of a quorum, but should be on shortly.
I'm sending the link to Commissioner Lewis right now.
Next thing on the agenda is public comments relative to the agenda items. If there's anybody from the public or anybody online that would like to speak, this is your opportunity. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the next thing. We have approval of minutes.
We do that, we don't have an quorum yet.
We can't do the minutes, just
Do the minutes, yeah.
Okay, I'll hold, we'll go back to the minutes. Next thing on the agenda is the consideration and potential action for the raw water master plan and rate stabilization fund.
So, Commissioner Lewis just joined, so I don't know if
Okay.
you want to jump back or.
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure. So we're gonna jump back. If you could hold off one minute, please. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the meeting minutes for August 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries to approve the minutes. And now we are on the master water plan.
Okay.
Bob?
Oh, sorry.
So, John, are you able to display for anybody phoning in?
You want the graph? Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Wow, that's really great. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did everybody get this single sheet
Not yet.
with the pretty graphs? Here, I can help.
I'll do it that way.
Oh, got it.
Start.
Do you want to do the master plan first, Bob, before you do the rate stabilization?
Well, yes, I think it kind of flows. There's two charts. The first one on the first page covers the detail of the master plan, the investments in every year, and then the associated debt service. And then the second page talks about what would happen if we established a rate stabilization fund, and how will it reduce the cost of the master plan on the first page. But
My only fear is if we get caught up in that and we haven't even, I think the first goal is to get the Water Bureau to the point where they, we're not asking for a resolution here, but we're looking for some guidance from Water Bureau as to what, there's two options that we're really proposing and talking about, and what is the feeling? We had this conversation at the last meeting, but we really need to move forward and get a consensus from Water Bureau. What direction are we going? And then we need to really talk about the rate stabilization fund, and then we really need to bring this to the full board and bring this to our towns. So. Jessica, are you?
I can wait.
What's that?
Do you want me to recap?
Yeah, if you could just recap first, Bob, I'm sorry, but if just recap first and go through the master plan and what we're proposing and what we're really asking the board to consider. And then, Bob, you can step in and talk about the rate stabilization and how we pay for it.
it's on the screen and there is.
I will.
Jess, do you want your presentation from the
have it?
last
Yeah.
meeting up? Yep.
Yes, please, thank you. Thank you. Give John a moment to pull that up so you know what I'm talking about.
It's part, It's part of
Revised,
the-
I think it was.
It's just a resolution based on.
Is it 8:30
Oh, okay.
revised, I believe? or
okay,
was
I'm
it-
sorry. I thought Jessica was gonna be presenting this.
That's okay. You can do a refresher before
Yeah,
we
just
dive
do a
into
quick
the-
refresher on the two options.
Yeah.
Dollar amounts, because Bob's gonna talk about the $2 amounts and the 20 versus the 30-year.
Need the old one. So that's the, do you have the June one?
You want the June one?
Yeah. So we presented twice. There was the extended version, I believe back in June 14th or so. And then on August 30th, we did a simpler version to recap what our main recommendation is for the master plan. So there were two options presented in the longer version that explained, when it all boiled down to was we need to replace our West Hartford Filters water treatment plant, and whether we replace it in a new location, which would make the most sense at Reservoir 6, or if we replace it in kind, essentially, at the West Hartford Filters plant, which would mean we could leave the transmission layout the same and just replace the plant in the same location. So on August 30th, we presented to you all to recommend that we go with the West Hartford Filters location because it was a cheaper and more efficient version. It's a shorter duration overall as a master plan. I'm going to skip ahead to some financial slides just so you can see. Bear with this, please. See the comparison of the two final proposals as far as dollars go. Let's see here, option 1 and option 2. So this shows here what we call the required work. This would include anything that had to be done for 2 transmission mains, as well as anything that had to be done in order to get a plant up and running. So in the red is option 1, which was the Reservoir 6 location. In the blue is option 2, which is the West Hartford Filters location. So required projects, $707 million versus $311 million, 18 years versus 28 years. The lines versus the bar graph show the cash flow extended out for a 20-year cash flow, bond payment, I'm sorry. I'm gonna save the discussion on the rate impact for Bob, but just to show you also a continuation of if we were to replace all of the transmission mains so that we ended up with an entire new raw water system and new treatment plant. Option 1 with the Reservoir 6 site was up to $940 million, whereas option 2 with the West Hartford site up to $647 million. So required projects being 311, and then an additional 300 plus, depending on what we decide to do later once we get the required work done. So we could replace as needed, we could line, we have some time to think that part through. So we're saying an up to cost of 650 almost versus almost 950. If anyone has questions on just the recap of that.
So yes, so this is important, and there was a lot more detail. It just did 70 slides in 50 minutes, which was awesome. But we really need to understand on a practical matter from Water Bureau. Is there anything else that we need to do to make the Water Bureau comfortable that what we're proposing, which is option 2, is the right solution for the MDC? Because this is going to involve referendum. This is going to involve, Bob's going to talk about a rate stabilization fund. This is a big deal, right? So it won't happen for 7 to 9 years, but we're making decisions today that are going to bring us in that direction. So, or we're asking Water Bureau and the district board. So is there any questions that you may have, Mr. Chairman, on our decision to go with improving? If you go back to that slide, Jessica presented this in her presentation. The differences between the two projects are really simple. West Hartford Filter, we can improve the system at the treatment plant by building a new treatment plant. And all of the raw water systems, except for that $47 million that we're going to spend on either option, is in really good shape. We spent 5 years analyzing the system, and we believe that 0 to $336 million, we believe that our existing raw water transmission mains are in very, very good shape, and we're not concerned about them. On the other project, option 1, the reason why it's $700 million to start is because not only do we have to increase the capacity of West Hartford Bloomfield plant, we also need a new raw water main immediately to make because the existing main is not large enough to serve the capacity. So that it's like comparing apples and oranges, but we tried our best to make sure that we fairly compared what a brand new system whether at West Hartford or whether at Bloomfield, would look like over a 20 to 30-year period. And that's those 940 to 647. But I just don't want to bring this to the full board without getting a consensus on next steps. We talked about bringing this topic and this presentation to the towns. It's something we should really talk about tomorrow, Commissioner. But Salemi, we should talk about this. This is a large expense, and none of this renovation of the system is going to produce $1 of revenue. It's just improving existing infrastructure. It's not adding more customers. So it is a topic that we should really focus on with the towns.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask, well, you say it's not going to produce $1, it's not going to produce an additional $1. of
Right,
revenue.
additional dollar, right.
It's not going to affect.
Right.
But a quick question on this is that both options appear to include the abandoning of the West Hartford filters,
Yes.
existing West Hartford filters. So,
Correct.
So what you're saying is that's not in our future either way.
No.
You know, so one of them is to build a new filter plant in West Hartford.
Yep.
But it's going to be a DE filter thing like Bloomfield.
Rapid
Or
sand
just
filtration.
move everything to Bloomfield and
Correct.
not use the
Correct. And if you move everything to Bloomfield, I've been fighting with staff for 5 years about that's not the right thing to do, but no, I'm kidding. I challenged them. Literally, we challenged each other for 5 years to make sure we're doing the right thing. But the challenge with going and building a bigger plant at Bloomfield is that the raw water main that is there existing isn't large enough. So you'd have to build a new raw water main and start. We don't have to do that with West Hartford Filter until, sometime later. But and the other problem is you've got the way in which you would have to feed. Remember, West Hartford Filter and Bloomfield are about 100 feet higher. Is it 100? Jessica?
Oh, sorry.
Is-
365 to new 95, sorry, you said, Susan?
Is it the elevation difference between Bloomfield and West Hartford is about 100 feet?
70 feet.
So that's 35 PSI, right? 35 PSI. So you've got a pressure problem. And so in order for us to feed water, right now, we send raw water to West Hartford Filter from Bloomfield by gravity. But if we had to now send finished treated water to West Hartford, because there's two different pressure zones, so we have to send the water to West Hartford so we can put it in its right pressure zone, and then we can send it out to our community. You're going to have to pump it, and all of a sudden pumps. And as we know, we don't like pumps in the water because energy and the expense. So that's $100 million or whatever the number is. It's a lot. It's a big number. So and Bloomfield, although Bloomfield can feed with two plants, we have redundancy, but it's not both ways, right? Bloomfield can serve, and we have in scenarios, we can feed Bloomfield water to West Hartford, but we can't feed West Hartford to Bloomfield. So we do have redundancy, but it's not both ways, right? If we built out Bloomfield and it was one plant, we wouldn't have that redundancy. We'd lose that portion of redundancy that we can feed West Hartford.
Well, in the purpose, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I just want to, I understand that. Even though it's technical, I think I've been here long enough to maybe get to it. But my point was, the West Hartford filters are historically old.
Yes.
They are now. I think they're the last sand filter left in the United States. That one, that size or something.
I don't think they're the last, but they're the largest.
They're
I
the
don't know if
oldest and largest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we've sort of made a decision that it doesn't serve our purposes ananymore, or,
Yeah,
or it's too costly to maintain, or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues, Commissioner. But we've been asking DPH for, gosh, I would say 5-7 years now. They've been asking us to upgrade the plant, and for millions of dollars, and we've said please don't make us do that right now because we got a master plan and we don't want to waste money on improving the system if we're going to do something different. So our water quality is perfect. There's nothing wrong with our water. Our position is there's no need to spend 10, 15, $20 million on West Hartford Filter if we're going to renovate it as part of a master plan. So that's why we really need to make decisions.
Some of those things were being driven by Department of Public Health.
Correct.
For instance, the holding tank, maybe Jessica could
Yeah,
explain that. a
the
little
9
bit.
and the 6 million gallon finished tank.
Yes, there are a few, I was trying to find the slide, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. A few things that at West Hartford have to be addressed. The 6 and 9 million gallon storage basins that we have now, DPH needs us to replace those. Based on the design at the time was obviously acceptable, but they have weep holes that they don't accept anymore. So we need to replace those, otherwise we'll be in violation. Currently, we discharge our wash water into Reservoir 1 because it's not something we use for our potable water, but that is going to be an issue down the line with DEEP. We also, just looking at the plant itself, structurally, we could upgrade it. I personally was a fan of keeping it in the beginning until we went through this process. I do also love the history of this plant, but slow sand filtration just doesn't cut it anymore. With the more issues we're going to have down the line with PFAS and disinfection byproducts and things like that, we're just not going to be able to handle it with that technology, and we can't retrofit the technology to that plant. It just has to be a whole new version.
But there isn't as much backwash from the DE plant, or there isn't any, or?
There would be backwash regardless, but we have to deal with that anyway. And if we're going to be doing this kind of work at the plant, we might as well consider the money we're going to spend in that sense. That's just one of the projects as part of a new plant.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Patel?
Yeah, maybe you all may have discussed it, but please explain me. Is it the life expectancy of the plant is over, or is plant is not efficient, or what are the major reasons, or is it a requirement of
Yes.
DEP, EPA? Why are we doing it?
Yeah, so, so Jessica just mentioned, the main reason is the finished plants. There's 9 million gallon and it's 6 million gallon, so the finished water goes into those basins and it's distributed to the system from there. Those systems, the water quality is perfect, but DPH says, because there's weep holes in the bottom of the system, which have been there for 100 years, they don't like that. They want us to renovate that and replace that. Well, that's, $20 million. We don't want to spend $20 million on something when we were considering this master plan. You also have the reservoir, wash water from into Reservoir 1. That's an issue. That's a permitting issue with DEEP, not DPH, and we've got to address that. So there's a lot of things. We have valves across the system. As you might remember, it might have been 2016. I remember the date, but we replaced 3 valves for $1 million. 3. So the system is old, and we need to improve it. And so that's what's really driving this is the age of the equipment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Bush.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bush.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I fully support the idea of abandoning the sand treatment. We did the tour earlier in the summer, and I think once you actually take a look at the technology and you compare each of the 2 facilities, it's pretty much a no-brainer that this is an outdated technology that is not efficient and it needs to be done. I just wanted to say that at this point that I fully support the option number 2. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions from commissioners? Go ahead, Jessica. Do you have anything?
I was just going to add to what you said, Scott, that it is pretty much all of the above. There's an aging plant with some issues that could cost, at least $90 million to try and address all the little things that are aging throughout the plant, and it just seems like an inefficient use of the funds when we could probably just put that towards a new plant.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
to that last point, if we put the 90 million in, how long would that make the plant still usable?
It's already 100 years old. It could buy us time, but the bigger issue is that the technology still will be the issue down the line to be able to address water quality sometime with the newer regulations coming out and things that we're changing with PFAS and whatnot.
Got it.
So it would just be a Band-Aid, basically.
Does it require MDC to raise funds, going back again to the public and asking for fundraising?
So Commissioner, as part of this presentation, that's what Bob's going to talk about. The way in which we pay for it is we're going to talk about a rate stabilization fund, which is identical to what we did with the Clean Water Project. And so what we're proposing is to utilize monies that, like, for example, last year we gave 29 cents back to the customer. This year we could give back 11 cents. We're proposing to create a rate stabilization fund, utilize those revenues, and put that money in there as seed money for these projects. So that's what Bob's going to talk about.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
No? Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes, Commissioner Gardo here. I saw the presentation back in June, and we saw it again last month, and I agree with option 2. I believe we've gotten our money's worth out of the plant that's 100 years old, and it's time to, and I like the redundancy, all right, of having in West Hartford, and I fully support this endeavor.
So, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners over here, all set? Commissioner?
Please, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on the committee, so it is the case that I did not see this presentation for whatever reason. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. So a couple questions. Something that Scott said before regarding additional revenue. And I asked the question not in terms of the revenue itself, but if it's the case that there is a transformation from the West Hartford Reservoir to the Bloomfield, however it's done, does that have a possibility of increasing the capacity of delivery? And I ask that because we still have the possibility that other towns could in fact petition to join the MDC in some capacity. And so is it the case that there's the possibility of increasing that, in which case we do increase the revenue, perhaps? So that's part one. And part two is... So part two is the fact that the water quality that we talk about over the years with the West Hartford sand filtration is the best possible quality that we could achieve. Now, does that remain the same? Does it decrease? I doubt that it increases, but I leave that.
Yeah, so
Additional revenue, additional sales.
thank you. So the question about additional revenue. So when I said that, what I mean is we're going to spend all this money and it's not increasing our customer base.
Right.
We're not expanding the system, we're just replacing the system. But however, what we do know is, Jess talked about PFAS. Thank God we don't have PFAS in our water. But with a new technology, if we ever did have PFAS, the new media systems that they use in rapid sound filtration, I mentioned this before, there's pilots going on right up in New Hampshire right now. Where'd you go to college, Sue? Merrimack. They're doing studies right now on different types of media, sands, that could absorb PFAS. So it gives us more flexibility, but truly, there is opportunity for additional revenue streams on sale of water. and it's gonna be driven by PFAS. What's gonna happen is, we're all of the water utilities are in this, UCMR, which is unregulated monitoring contaminant. So it's mandated by EPA. We all have to do this, and you have 1 year, 4 cycles to do this. You have 3 years to do it. We decided to do it in the first year, and we've had very good success. There's going to be a regulation that comes out of this, and whatever that might be, and it might say you have to do X, and you have to remove down to a certain level of PFAS in your drinking water. And if that happens, there's already been wells across Connecticut we are aware of that have closed because of PFAS. Those companies are going to have to buy water from somebody. So we're expecting, once this regulatory process is completed, there'll be water utilities asking us to buy water from them or mandated to buy water from us. So to your point on the plant, we're sizing the plant we go by peak capacity. You have to worry about the worst day, the peak, and it's 90.
Our total, no, we're going for 90.
90. So 90 million gallons a day. And then if we ever had to expand in the future, we could always expand Resi 6, because there's the capacity to do that. It's on that option 1. You'd have to put in a new raw water main up to the reservoirs and expand. But yes, we have plenty of room to expand.
Yes. And there'll be more room left over in West Hartford as well after we do
Exactly.
this.
Physically, there'll be more room, yes.
So quality question?
Yes, and the quality is, as we know, I mean, our water quality is excellent, right? There's no doubt about that. We have no PFAS. New York State doesn't even treat their water, right? They put a little shock in it, a little chlorine, and that's it. They don't treat it. We are lucky, very lucky, in the sense that our water quality at the reservoir is so good that we don't have the challenges like Flint, Michigan had, right? So the rapid sand filtration system allows you to treat more water quicker. As you can imagine, if everyone has visited, you've got 22 filter beds, acre, half acre, right? And you fill those catacombs up with water, and it slowly drains. So it's a faster process. But the water quality, I don't know if you, Sue, you want to say anything about the water quality versus Resi 6 water quality versus Resi 6 water quality versus West Hartford filter?
Yeah, obviously, Susan Negrelli, obviously, we're starting with the same source water at both. We've got Nepog and Barkhamsted. We tend to like to send Barkhamsted water down to the West Hartford plant because it's a little better water quality than Nepog, and because we don't have, and if Ray was here, he would word it better. When the water through the slow sand facility, we don't have a lot of options for treatment. It's just filtering the water. That's all we've got. And then we finish the water with some chemicals at the end, adjust the pH, add the chlorine, the corrosion control, et cetera. So there's no treatment options down there. At Resi 6, we have alum. We have ways to treat the water better before it goes to the filters. So that's the problem. The slow sand filtration plant, if in fact we have raw water issues in the future, we would have better ability to treat it with a modern facility. We don't have that at West Hartford right now. The capacity issue you were talking about, possibly selling to more customers, we're going to build this facility so that we have 90 MGD total, as Jess said. We're putting out about 46, 47 now. So we are building capacity in the system for ourselves and for future customers.
Right, thank you.
So what's Bloomfield capacity?
42
42?
MGD.
Okay. And West Hartford can send up to Bloomfield, so
Well,
why you're,
No.
Resi 6 can send down we can feed Resi 6 water into the West Hartford service
Can't go
area.
from West Hartford up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? I think the majority of the commissioners feel that the option 2 is the best choice for us as far as direction.
So
And
would you
we
like us to?
I think this rate stabilization is going to be very important.
Yeah.
Do we go into that?
Yeah,
section
we
now?
go into that, and then what we'd like to do is really develop a, we'd like to develop a master plan schedule, so to speak, so we can put that in front of finance, put that in front of, Bob's gonna talk about rate stabilization fund, but we really want to start this coming 2024 with start planning some of those projects that we need to do. And we don't want to do that without a recognition from the board as to what we're doing, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you said, and I'm only saying this because I want to make sure I'm not confused. You said option 2. What's option 2?
Is a new, option 2 is a new facility in West Hartford.
Yes, a new treatment plan in West Hartford Filter.
Yeah, and so you're right. I do think that's, because of what Scott talked about with the difference in the elevations. So we can send with a new transmission main, we can send from Reservoir 6 to West Hartford and keep the pressures without pumps. That's definitely the real secret to our success is the reservoirs, and it's all gravity.
That's right.
And you can't find too many systems that can say both. And I don't want to change those options at all. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bob, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's great. As a matter of fact, I learned a great deal about what I produced here on this slide. This slide is a representation of option 2. So it has the same information that Jessica's slide had, but Jessica's slide was comparing option 1 versus option 2. This is only option 2. And you'll notice with the dotted line, this is the handout you have. It's page 1 of 2, the front. You'll notice on the left-hand side, it says the first 6 years of projects will be $47 million. And that's represented by the blue bars. And then all the way up, that's so years 1 through 6 on the bottom you can see. And then years 1 through 18, if you follow that dotted line up, that's the $311 million that was shown on Jessica's chart. And then if you go all the way out to year 31, you'll see, if you follow the dotted line up, you'll see that that is the full $647 million. So the first 6 years, $47 million is the same no matter what option we do. The $311 million here is for option 2, and those are the initial priority projects. And then that's for the 18-year projects. And for the 31-year projects, that's when you add an additional $336 million, bringing it up to the $647. And those are the condition-dependent transmission projects. So those are the bars. That's how much debt you'll authorize me to go out and raise so that we can do the projects. So what happens once I issue the debt? We have to pay it back, right? And so that's what the lines are. Those are the debt service payments. As you can see, all 3 lines in year 1 are $0. I issue the debt in August, and I don't have to make the first debt service payment until the following year. So you begin to see debt service payments in year 2, year 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you'll see the lines for the 6-year debt service alone. And remember, we said 6 years is $47 million. That is the debt service. If we only do $47 million, that's the red line. and you'll see how it ends in year 26, right? The end of the red line is year 26. And that makes sense, right? If I'm issuing debt in each of 6 years, that last debt issue that I issue for a 20-year term, 6 plus 20 is going to end in 2026. Well, the same is true for the gray line, is that if we only do the 18 years worth of projects, remember we called those the initial priority projects, that extra 264 million, bringing the total spend to 311 million, you'll see how the line is the same as the yellow line up until year 18. But if we're not doing any of the projects beyond year 18, the debt service is the gray line that ends at year 38. Again, last year of debt issue in year 18, 20 years later, we finished the debt repayment in 38. And lastly, we have the full 647 million, just the same as Jessica presented, whereas that would be the yellow line, the debt service expiring 20 years after the 31st year, so out in year 51. So now that you've been introduced to the bars, how much debt I'll have to raise for the projects to be done in each of these 3 categories, let's flip over to the second page. And John, can you bring that? Oh, that's not as clean. I'm glad you guys got handouts, but yeah, I apologize to the folks that are on the phone, because that second slide is not as big. Unless you can do control and your roll on your mouse, you might be able to make that bigger. Oh, great. Oh, that's much better. Thank you. Oh, that's really wonderful. We should have done that with the last one too. So, all right. So now, we talked about the debt issue and the debt service payments. Those were in millions of dollars on the first slide. But now let's talk about, hey, how do we pay for those millions of dollars? Remember our assumption for those of you that were here for the budget our discussion, we're assuming 17.7 million CCFs a year. And so if I need, let's say $47 million, you could divide it by 17.7 million CCFs, and that's going to give you an idea how much the debt issue for the Water Master Plan will have an impact on the water rate. And so, it got small again. You had it so pretty. All right, there we go. So I wanna show you how these, now if you look at the left, the left, I forgot what it's called. The left bar,
Axis.
I guess, the axis. Golly, all these years of. Anyway, the left axis, you'll see they're not in millions of dollars anymore. They're in cents, right? And so we have 25 cents increments up to $2.25. This is the impact of the payment of the debt service on the water rate. And so you'll notice how all 3 bars, the red bar, just like the red line on the previous slide, is for the 6-year plan. The, what do you call that? Gray bar, the gray bar is for the 18-year plan, and then the yellow bar is for the full 31-year plan. Well, notice how they're all of equal sizes in each of the years up until year 6, right? Well, then the red bar goes off on its own, because that's assuming we only do the first 6 years. And the gray bar is equal to the yellow bar all the way up until year 18, because it assumes that we're not doing any more projects, and then it goes down. And then, of course, you have the yellow bar doing the whole project. So let's look at the summary in the upper left-hand corner. It shows the project, the number of years, and the dollar amounts for 6 years at 47 million and so on. But in the middle, it shows what the maximum increase to the water rate and when it occurs for each of the proposals. So it would make sense for the 6 years of debt issue that the maximum increase is going to be in the very next year. Remember, when I issue debt in year 1, it doesn't appear until year 2. Same with the last debt issue of year 6, it doesn't appear to year 7. So if we only do the 47 million, the maximum increase from year to year is that 20 cents in year 7. It's $1.29 in year 19 for the 18-year plan and $2.30 in year 232 for the 31-year plan. But now the cumulative cost to the customer. This now you'll see in the prior presentation we were assuming 100 CCFs. This is getting a little closer to what is reality for a residential consumer. But this is assuming 80 CCFs per year, and it shows what the impact would be to a customer if we only do 6 years worth of debt issues that are paid over 26 years, right? That first option. After 26 years, the total cost to someone using 80 CCFs a year is only $312. So that's right, over 26 years, only $312. However, if we do more than the 47 million, if we go up to that 311 million and we do 18 years worth of debt issues, 18 years, we're paying for that debt out to year 38. In 38 years, the average person using 80 CCFs a year, it would only be a $2,000 total cost for 38 years, in the same description for the full 647 million. After 51 years, it's only costing $4,308. So now we're talking about a rate stabilization fund. And so how is the rate stabilization fund going to help us? Take a look at the lower left-hand side of the slide, and you'll see that blue box. And you know that blue box that says we're issuing $47 million in the first 6 years? Well, I wanted to break that out and put that impact in the blue box in the upper right-hand corner and show you if I issue debt that the way the engineers gave it to me in year 1, that would cost about a penny in year 2, right? I issued debt in 1 year and the debt service begins the next year. So in year 2, you have a penny. If I issued the debt in year 2, that was part of the 47 million. In year 3, it would cost me another penny, and so on. And so that's what I have. In year 2, a penny, 3, a penny, 4, 7 cents, 5, 13 cents, 6, 16 cents. And there it is. Remember when I told you 20 cents would be the highest year-over-year increase previously? That's what happens. When I issue the debt in year 6, it's going to cost me an additional 20 cents in year 7. So if you look to the right of that, what is this $47 million worth of spend in those first 6 years going to cost me cumulatively? And it's 57 cents. And so how do we pay for that? Normally what happens is any expenditure for a capital project on the water side, you give me authorization to go borrow for it, we pay for it, the next year we start paying the debt service. but I have to raise the money by raising the water rate to pay that debt service. And so, so what this is saying is that for the schedule of $47 million worth of money raised in the first 6 years, it will cumulatively cost me 57 cents. So now, I'd like to just have you think back to your monthly reports, the CEO reports, where we're talking about our variance to budget. We've had some unanticipated. We had no idea that the interest rates were going to be as high as that they've grown this year. And we've generated a good deal more money in interest income than we anticipated. And so what we're proposing is, I think the number we showed in the previous presentation was a little over $5 million. What we're proposing is to set aside $2 million of that and put it as a rate stabilization fund. And so we can mitigate the impact of this debt issue for this master plan on the water rate. And if we set it aside now, and I'll tell you what 2 million is. We assume 17.7 million CCFs. So you can, on your calculator, do $2 million divided by 17.7 million, and you're going to come up with 11 cents. So we could have effectively set aside 11 cents that would normally raise the water rate, but restrict those funds in the water utility financial statement for use to mitigate the increases to the water rate as a result of doing this master plan. So in the upper right-hand corner, this is the end of the speech. In the upper right-hand corner, what does that 11 cents buy us? Well, it's certainly going to buy the first year. The second year, that's only 2 cents. The third year, another 7 cents. We could execute the first 6 years, the first $47 million worth of spend on this. And if we set aside this money now, we will not have the master plan's debt issue impact the water rate for over 4 years. Look at the cumulative number for 4 years. It's only $9, and we're recommending, or 9 cents. We're recommending that we set aside 11 cents now. And then what happens is unlike the Clean Water Fund, a Clean Water Fund is a charge on everybody's bill where we have money coming in every month. This has the same exact purpose, is to mitigate the increase of the cost to the customers. But what we're doing is not saying let's put an additional cost on the water ratepayers. Let's take a look at the surplus that we've already identified for this year, that we report to you every month, and acknowledge that we have extra funds. Let's set it aside now, so when this debt service comes due, we will already have it paid for. 57 cents for the first 6 years in total. If we put aside 11 cents now and we look next year, and if we have another good year, we could come back and make a recommendation to add to that, and potentially we have the ability to increase this fund to a limit where the execution of this water master plan for the first 6 years, the first $47 million, will not impact our water rate. And that's the proposal in front of you tonight. The alternative that I think went out to everybody was, well, if we know this money is coming in, why don't you just reduce the water rate? And that is possible. Next year, we could reduce the water rate and replace that revenue with $2 million coming from the net position, the equivalent of fund balance. We could just say, hey, we're just going to take 2 million of it because I know I'm putting extra money in this year. We'll take 2 million up in revenue and we can cut the water rate by 11 cents. But this is our recommendation to help mitigate the impact of this debt issue for the master plan.
Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, two questions first. Well, one observation, I was on a condo board once, and it was always a kind of a balancing act to try to pay for today's, or for future projects with people who are in the condo association today, for the future people,
Yeah.
who you may or may not.
Generational equity, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say we want to certainly weigh that. But these dollars, are they present dollars or are they future dollars?
I believe the projects are expressed in current day dollars for spend in the future. I'm sorry, is that these are the dollars I have to raise to get the projects done in the future. So let's see. I'm trying to, if we go back to the first slide, I could see, it looks like year 3, I'm issuing about $14 million. They would have taken the cost of the projects today and increased it to what the anticipated cost is in year 3 and came back and said, Bob, in year 3, you need to issue $13 million worth of debt.
But if I may, just to add to that, Mr. Sharon, there's been no engineering on these projects, right? So these are tabletop 5-year exercises on what we think it will cost into the future. So just like the Clean Water Project, as we build stuff and as we design stuff, things will change and we'll learn and lessons learned. And so this will be a moving target, just like when the Clean Water Project started, it was 800 million, and then it became 1.2, and then it became 1.8, and then became 2.1, and then became 2.4. So that is, there's been no engineering on these numbers. It's just that it's our best guess at the time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bush?
Hi, Bob, thanks for that. Just very good explanation. I just want to, just for my own clarity, you had said that if we do the 51-year plan, and it would cost $4,308 for somebody who used 80 CCFs.
Right.
And I just wanted to try to extrapolate that into a monthly cost. So if I took 4308 divided by 51 divided by 12, that's about $7.04 per rate payer per month additional at the maximum over time. Is that
sounds like a good calculation. I'm saying it's going to cost $4,300 over 51 years. You divide it by 51 years, but of course, that's the average. But in reality, it'll be really small dollars that'll grow and then drop off. Right.
And if you had to just extrapolate with a rough guess at that peak of that yellow part, what are we talking about on an approximate monthly bill increase per person during those maximum years there?
Oh, I think I did that in that the upper left-hand corner of the middle box. I said the water rate has, well, you know what? I'm sorry, that's a year-over-year increase. It's a year-over-year, that's the maximum year-over-year increase. I could recreate this upper right-hand corner and run it out all 51 years. I mean, I have the data,
Bob,
but I don't know.
Bob, isn't it $2 and some odd cents for the
For the peak rate, you're saying at the maximum?
Yeah.
It'd be around $12.20.
$12 a month?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we're not, it's not big dollars. Okay, and thank you, appreciate that. And just, when would year 1 be, approximately?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, what are we talking about for year 1?
Well, so year 1, we're talking about today.
Yeah.
If the Water Bureau decided to pass a resolution tonight, we would bring this to the Board of Finance for the rate stabilization. And we would start planning for projects most likely to start being executed in the design phase in 2025. So, we might start the end of this year, but most likely it would, we would start moving forward in 2025.
Okay.
If I may, just to add to this rate stabilization fund. So one thing that we have history, right? We have history of the rate stabilization fund with the Clean Water Project. It's very specific. It is only to be used for the Clean Water Project. Developing this rate stabilization fund, we believe, if we are capable of executing a number of years, 4 years, maybe more, maybe less, but if we can prove and provide our customers with the credibility and the trust of what we're doing, then when we go to referendum, whenever that might be, 8 years, 9 years from now, we will have history to show what we have done in 2024 to develop this rate stabilization fund. We've deferred the cost of any capital investment for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it might be. But it will help us with our towns approving, a referendum, if the board so chooses to move forward with it, whenever that is. And we also are talking about things like, we talked about this in Board of Finance, if there were revenue from the sale of land from Glastonbury, if the board so chose to take that money and put this into this rate stabilization fund, or it went into OPEB or whatever, but there's opportunities that are in front of us. We're not suggesting that Glastonbury is going to happen, but
The more we put into the rate stabilization fund, the more level the water bill will be for our customers. Correct? Okay. At this time, I'm going to excuse myself, and I'm going to have the Vice Chairman, Commissioner Adel, take over the meeting because I have another meeting. I want to thank everybody, and we'll turn it over to him.
What's up?
do you have a quorum?
Yes, we do. Lewis and Van Dyke are on.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Are we finished with item 4 yet then?
there is a proposed resolution that I handed out. So
okay, yes.
Either if there's further questions or if somebody wants to move to approve the resolution.
Is there any further questions, or do we have a motion to approve the resolution? Anyone? No questions, so the motion, anyone like to make the motion, please?
So moved. This is Commissioner Mandyke.
And a second? Okay. Can we have Commissioner Bush second? He's not on the committee, no?
Oh, am I not in this meeting?
No.
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, and any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, so next, Bob, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Next would be consideration and potential action, Ray, potential purchase of real estate in New Hartford. And is this going to be executive session?
Not necessary, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be just a general overview. We don't have any contract pending or even negotiations.
Okay, would that be then, District Council then?
Yeah, I can just, if you don't mind, I can do a quick synopsis of it. We Chris Stone, District Council, we received a inquiry from an individual who owns property. I think it's 107 acres, although I gotta pull up the
103.
It's 103.
Yeah.
Yeah, 103 acres of property that's in New Hartford. It's in close proximity to the Nepog Reservoir. Obviously, and it's been placed on an open market, so any information I'm giving you is open to the public anyway. But there's been at one point there was an offer to purchase the land from a private individual. That contract fell through. The price that's been listed for has gone down over the past several years. But this being property that's close to one of our reservoirs, it's not classified now because it's not owned by a water company, but I assume, Susan, it would be at least Class 2 land, maybe Class 3 land. eventually, so it has some value to us in that respect. We have commissioned an appraiser to perform an appraisal analysis of the property. We've received that. There's some questions I have on that, and I've reached out to the appraiser to discuss those with him. At such time as we begin discussing, if we should discuss with the realtor who's representing the property owner, a potential transaction here, obviously we'd come back to this bureau first to discuss that, go to finance for the funding, and then ultimately to the district board for approval of a contract. But it's really in its infant stages at this point. But it is something that we want to at least put on the Water Bureau's radar screen, that this may be coming. It may be coming fast. It may be a while, but we're looking to at least express some interest in the property.
Okay. Questions from commissioners? So we haven't expressed any interest because we had to go through committee first? Or?
Appraisal, we haven't even reached out to a realtor, their realtor, to begin any type of negotiations. We don't have obviously it's going to be some give and take, I would assume, but at this point, anything we do is so preliminary that there's nothing really for this bureau to consider. But you may be called upon sometime in the relatively, certainly before the end of the year, but in the relatively near future to consider the proposal. And it'll probably be, if we can fit it in, I'll have to speak to the chairman of the board. These types of things you like to do in one day. You don't like, because it's public now once you pass a resolution, so you want to do it at the same day so that we can move it quickly. And not have it linger there for a couple of weeks between one bureau meeting and then ultimately the board meeting or a finance board meeting. So we'll try to coordinate that through if it comes to pass through the budget process, where you're going to have Board of Finance meetings, you're going to have Water Bureau meetings on rates, and ultimately a board meeting to approve the budget. So if we can coordinate that, that'd probably be the best thing to do.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
So we do have, there is an allocation, as you might remember, Commissioner Salemi, we had a master plan as we presented at the last Water Bureau meeting, developed in probably 2012, and we identified a number of these properties. And we had in the past been identifying CIP authorizations, allocations from the board to purchase land, to actually do this. And we have done a number of purchases, but some of the properties that we were interested in were sold to private developers and those kinds of things. We do have an authorization for purchase of land, a $5 million authorization. So if we were to get an agreement with this property owner, we would, and the conservancy issue hadn't been resolved yet, and the Glassberry land hadn't been resolved yet, we do have an allocation that we could use if the board so choose to authorize it. So we'll once we get closer, we'll figure that out. But we are, we want the Water Bureau to know we're engaging the owner with the appraisal that we have.
My only question, Mr. Chairman, if I can, it's not really a question. My understanding is that this particular piece of land is watershed. It's
Yes.
in the watershed.
Yes, it is.
So, and what I worked on and what I hope we can continue at some point is non-watershed. Everything that's been determined as non-watershed land, because we want to dispose of that if we can, if there's revenue for it, and if the potential is to protect our water resources even more by purchasing watershed land, then that seems like a really appropriate thing to use to pay for it. So
that's the plan.
That is.
Any other commissioners, comments, questions? Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for that. That's great. Next is opportunity for general public comments. Anyone? On the phone? Anyone? Okay, no one then. Commissioner requests for future agenda items. Anyone? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman.
I think that one of the issues that we need to consider and discuss here relates to the intrastate connectivity of water transmission systems in the state of Connecticut. Since in many communities, one, they don't have the water, or two, their wells are going bad. And since in many of the communities in Connecticut, their systems are well driven. And if the MDC, and probably along with the Water Authority in New Haven, since we rely on surface water, we probably are going to be the only game in town. Well, the fact of the matter is you're going to have to move the water. And either you're going to do it in buckets or Dixie cups, or you got to do it through pipelines. And I think that it is now time for us to discuss this, and perhaps we refer to DEEP or someone at the state level. But someone has got to step up and take this on, because I think that we need to make sure that we can move water to any town in this state that doesn't have it and that doesn't need it. Fact of the matter is, I think that it's absolutely critical. I think that in addition to that, the issue as to how we are compensated for that water needs to be re-examined. We have a substantial capital plan. We are incurring tremendous capital expenditures. And I think that what we have to be compensated for needs to reflect much more than is currently reflected in our ordinances. And I think that we need to discuss that and consider that. Thank you.
Very good, Commissioner Taylor. Anyone else? I hate to sound like a broken record, but I would like to also suggest the EV charging stations issue over Reservoir 1. And as per the an article I sent out recently about the deterioration of New England forests, ours included, get on the agenda, stewardship of our forests, which may, buddy, impact finance if we're thinking we might want to add another forester to the, as an FTE if the committee so chooses to go forward with that. So those would be my items, and I guess that just leaves a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.